Hi everyone, welcome to this session of our web series Fireside Chat with Champions, in which we interview global business leaders asking them crowdsourced questions relevant to biggest challenge we face today, COVID-19 and its impact on various aspects of business as well as society, and the way we can steer ourselves in current uncertainties. Today we have a very special guest with us, Kunal Prasad, founder and CEO of CropIn Technology Solutions. CropIn is an intuitive, intelligent, self-evolving system that delivers future-ready farming solution to the entire agriculture sector. It delivers decision-making tools that bring consistency, dependability, and sustainability to agri-businesses with capabilities of live reporting, analysis, interpretation, and insight that span across geographies. CropIn intends to digitize every farm while data managing the entire ecosystem. Kunal, an alumni of Great Lakes Institute of Management and Bela Institute of Technology, has helped CropIn in reaching out to millions of farmers in more than 50 countries, solving critical challenges of improving farm productivity and sustainability, climate resilience, and food security. He has worked extensively with governments, development agencies, cooperatives, and farmer groups, and also helped small and marginal farmers adopt newer practices to be more sustainable. Thanks, Kunal, for accepting our invitation. I would request you to let our viewers know a bit more about you and your current interests and activities. Floor is yours, Kunal.
Great. Thank you so much, Deepak. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to be a part of this session. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Kunal here. I'm the co-founder and the chief operating officer at CropIn. Let me give you a small brief about CropIn and the journey that we had in the last 10 years. So we started in 2010, and the intention for CropIn was basically to digitize this agricultural ecosystem and build in the best-in-class technology solutions for the ecosystem. What we observe is that there was a huge inefficiency in the ecosystem, and that was causing a lot of problem across the value chain, from starting from the farmers to the ecosystem that we're working with the farmers, and then the end consumer that we're asking for a certain type of product to be delivered. So we started working, and then we realized that the first thing that was required is a base digital infrastructure where we would know what is the farmer, where is it located, what is the land size, what is it growing, and that's the base information on which the rest of the value chain could interact in. So we built a complete framework of a digital solution, which we call as a smart farm, which is a farm management solution where you can actually digitize your farmers, the location, the KYC information of the farmers, and then across the complete production cycle, you know exactly how to manage your package practices, input recommendation, good agriculture practices, and things like that. As this platform eventually started getting built up, we started realizing is once you have done the farm production right, the next thing that is required is a smart supply chain solution, because there itself there is almost a lack of loss of 30 to 40% in the entire ecosystem. There is also a challenge that now the local food production units are not able to export to international standards, and that's where they required norms like traceability, where they could prove that they have done a good job. So we started building that solution to integrate our farm level work to the entire supply chain, connecting the dots from the production to the packaging to the storage and then the export, which an end consumer when he's consuming a product in say Europe can actually see a QR code sitting on their products, and then when you scan it, you can actually see it's coming from which part of the world. So this became the next set of solution, and this was almost around 2016-17 that we brought in. Eventually, as we started working with almost 100-200 companies in different parts of the world, by around 2017, we started realizing is that we had a huge amount of data and a huge amount of experience from the different sectors, and data was becoming the new normal. Everyone wanted to then utilize data, do on top of what they have in terms of analytics and AI, so that they can do much more predictive and prescriptive agriculture. And that's where we brought in our AI platform, which we call as the Smart Risk. And this platform basically then uses your baseline data, the ground data. We then fuse this data with the weather data and the satellite data, and then we build predictive models for an institution to basically look at regions far from themselves. Some of the specific use cases in our AI in agriculture is basically the government would say, can you help me predict an entire state that what is the cropping pattern going on right now? Agrochemical company would be interested to seeing only one particular crop variety that is growing so that he can go and sell his implements or inputs in those regions. So we help them in terms of predicting that. We work with banks and financial institutions, and they would be interested in knowing about the performance of a single plot that how the plot had performed in the history, so that they would not have to do the redundant work of capturing the baseline data of the farmer for giving them credit, but this can be all artificially done from a technology framework. So yeah, these are some of the things we have brought into the ecosystem. We started with baseline data digitization. Now we have moved to insights and analytics. And for institutions which have gone beyond that, we are giving them much more predictive and prescriptive advisories using AI machine learning. Our platform basically covers all aspects from digitization to climate smart agriculture, to traceability, to in terms of sustainability, to women empowerment. You name them, and there are some elements of the product features which basically caters to that. So very happy to share our experiences in the current context going ahead. Thank you.
Awesome, Kunal. I can always vouch for the great work CropIn has been doing. I've got associated with your team, awesome team, very, very talented, and being early mover in the field, a lot of EdTech professionals look towards you and your team as a motivation. So thanks for doing what you're doing. So let's get into the question, Kunal. If you have heard recently, David Beasley, the United Nations World Food Programme Executive Director, said that even before the coronavirus became an issue, 2020 was to be the worst humanitarian crisis since World War II, with close to 835 million people hungry. And with COVID, according to him, another 135 million will be added. This is because of various factors. What, in your view, would be the COVID-19 impact on global food security?
Yeah, I think agriculture is one of the most challenging sectors. If you are a farmer, then you will realize that the uncertainties for you is increasing. For anything to be successful, you have to be certain about the variables that's going to impact that. So not having right access to inputs like seeds, fertilizers, and then not having access to right markets. Then you have climate crisis, and then additionally to that, now you have the COVID crisis, right? So when a farmer is not knowing about the variabilities, he cannot design his entire production cycle so that he can get the maximum output, right? So that's fundamentally that's happening right now, and that's a challenge which the farmers are facing day in and day out. In the context of a food crisis, the other challenge that has emerged is in the COVID period is the entire infrastructure for serving a farmer is all lost, right? So the farmer is not able to now go to a source where he can purchase the right seeds. He cannot have implements. He's not having access to a labor these days. So these are all additional challenges which the farmers are facing. Now let's see what has happened in the current 3-4 months of COVID period, right? The farmer were growing fruits and vegetables. These were, the government and everyone was promoting that when you go to F&B sector, you will be able to earn more, and the farmers switched to those directions. But these are all very perishable. This needs very, very strong supply chain solutions. But because of this COVID, this entire thing was disturbed, right? So there was a huge loss. Almost 3 to 4 times losses, which was earlier happening in the food storage and the supply chain, right? So the farmers are then in distress solution. But what is also happening is that since the food is not able to move forward towards the consumer, there is going to be a food security challenge. Thankfully, for the Indian context, what we know is that India is food surplus right now. There is enough for feeding the population. But if the next season, which is the Kharif season, which is the major season for the Indian context, if this season goes in a challenging term, then we may face a food crisis maybe 6 to 9 months from now. And this is the same situation that might arise in other parts of the world. I'm really concerned about countries which are total importers of food produce. If these countries would not get access and you have closed the lines of transportation between different geographies, then this will face quite a crisis. And I personally feel that the post-COVID world, which will actually see people moving towards self-sufficiency of food from their own countries and geographies.
Awesome, very well articulated, Kunal. Seeing the challenges which we see, it's very important that people like you contribute using digital technology to ensure that we increase our productivities, because going forward you will find less land cultivated, but at the same time we'll need higher productivity. So wish you all the best, and all the best to the ecosystem to solve this one of the biggest puzzle of the human beings. Coming closer to home, as you rightly said, that India has been able to at least feed its people, so we say that we don't have starvation related death. But the COVID has created a huge challenge to already fragile agriculture sector in India. As you were talking about fruit and vegetable sector, where farmers have suffered serious losses. Feeding 1 billion was already a challenge even before Corona. For a country with the highest cultivated area in the world, which is close to 1.8 billion square kilometer, India's struggle in feeding its more than 1 billion people. and the chronic issue which originated in colonial past, it even enhanced today, which could be like, the farmers' distress as well as the food security. India still accounts for nearly 25% of the world's hungry people, as well as 190 million undernourished people. What are the key issue and hence solution you think, whether in food production, logistic, and consumption, to make India food secure in post-COVID world?
Okay, so, so I think that's a great question, Deepak. I think what's happening let's talk about the COVID world right now. So what's happening is that there are institutions which are trying to serve the farmers. I mean, in the pre-COVID world, they were serving the farmers through different mechanisms. They had the extension team that were going, they had the sales team which were going, interacting with the farmers and servicing them. But now what's happening in the post or during the COVID world is that this all intermediation is not there, right? So now we have to interact directly with the farmers, and the best way to doing that is technology. So from a government's perspective, what's happening is they are looking at the next season, right? So from a farmer's perspective, or also from institutions which are working with the farmer, there are three clear segments of interaction that will happen. One is pre-sowing. How can you engage with the farmers pre-sowing? Second is the in-season interaction, and the third is the post-season interactions. So in the pre-season interaction right now, if you see, most of the farmers would need access to capital, and that's where the government is funding a lot of money in the agriculture sector, so that the farmers can have access to capital for them to go and buy seeds, do those land preparation activities, and then go for agriculture in the coming season. That's the first part. From a technology perspective, earlier the banks were sending the extension workers to actually go monitor the farmers, do the KYC, and then record whether this farmer is suitable for you to do the lending or not. I mean, that was the pre-COVID world. The technology is going to change that, and I'm going to talk about that in the time. The second part is basically like, once the in-season comes in picture, then the farmer would need access to inputs, fertilizers, implements, and the advisory which will be helpful for them to grow that particular crop. Now, these were all also sourced from people who were then interacting with the farmers, but again, the same challenge remains there. Then we have to provide the services to the farmers as well as advisory for helping them grow the crop. The post-harvest mechanism will be even difficult, because the farmers will have to then find logistics, they have to find traders or businesses which will be interested to interact and buy their commodities. So the institution will also have to know that what is the crop that is growing in this particular region, so that they can come and interact and then do the trade transactions out there. So I think the problem lies in all of these three phases, and it's like a chain. Like any of the phase is weak, then the entire ecosystem will start breaking, and that's why the focus has to be there from all of the perspectives. Now, from the technology perspective, like we are working with a lot of institutions which are focusing on all of these elements, and obviously the government and development sector becomes a very strong pillar for us. So in the first part, in terms of bringing access of credit to the farmers, what we are doing is we are building models of farmer credit scoring for banks or microfinance institutions to lend to these farmers without even sending the field team on the ground. And that's where we are using our AI models, using satellite or weather data to predict a certain parcel of land, go in history 3 years, see what the crops the farmer is growing. So if the farmer is growing cotton, then I can tell the bank that the farmer was growing cotton last 3 years, his performance was good, and this was estimated yield that he was getting, and he was on an average earning this much. So the bank now knows that the worthiness of the particular farmer, and he can lend it directly through a platform. What we are also doing in the Indian context is we are basically integrating some of the land cadastral map of the government. So we know exactly what the land records of these farmers. So within the branch, we can exactly know that 9,000, 10,000 farmers, which is eligible. And this can be then given to the banks for them to process that using all of the technology that we talked about. In the in-season crisis that is there to ensure that the production is not hampered, again, these are all information or in terms of advisory, depending on the crop that the farmer is growing. And this can be also climate smart advisory, which can be sent to the farmer using different means, either SMS, IVRS, two-way communication, or farmer applications. That's also something that we help almost 2.1 million farmers that we interact with through that particular mechanism. But we are also eventually seeing is that the informal method of getting the inputs or like seeds or fertilizers which were there earlier, now the farmers are asking for the seeds right now. So they are trying to understand that can we supply them directly at the doorstep. And that's where a lot of these startups which are directly doing B2C delivery of these inputs or implements will see a lot of traction coming from in this particular times of COVID. The post-COVID situation is also the same. where the institution, like the first responsibility would be the government, right? So the government will have to predict that what is the crop that the farmer have taken. And the situation right now with the farmer is that they have seen a big loss in the previous season, and mostly the fruits and vegetable sector has been impacted. So they are going to change the crop. Now with billions of farmers which are growing different crops, I mean, you have to actually identify what is the new pattern, and basis that you have to involve the ecosystem through bulletins or information that they can interact with. So machine learning and AI, again, predicting either at a pin code level, at a village level, or at a gram panchayat level, or a district level, where you can actually tell them that this is the new pattern that we have seen, and this is the opportunity for you to lend, and this is the arrival pattern. So in the month of, say, July, August, September, the sowing would have been completed, and then you would have seen the arrival by around September onwards. So we can actually tell them the pattern of what is going to be produced. Is it going to be a surplus or not? So we also know that the weather conditions are going to be favorable this year. So if that is the situation, then there is going to be a food surplus. So the responsibility of really engaging with the stakeholders in the supply chain, warehousing, and either keeping it in the country or exporting it becomes a great opportunity for us to pre-plan it and then execute it during the season. I think this will also bring in a lot of digital interventions, and this is going to be the new norm in the post-COVID world as well, where these frameworks will become stronger, and institution will start engaging directly with their customers, which is the farmers, and that will actually reduce the redundancy or the inefficiency in the ecosystem, and the value could be shared by both the ecosystem partners, including the farmer or the value chains.
Awesome, Kunal. It's great to know the things you are doing on ground to impact farmers, especially for the next season. And I strongly believe in what you said, that digital tools are gonna be something which would be friends of the farmers going forward. In fact, I'll just give you a small example of what we also did, and it was, believe me, very, very low tech. You'll be surprised that after all these platforms and everything, the challenge of the farmer was to sell his output to the end user. End user was not ready to travel because there were restrictions. My team on ground, they just trained farmers how to use a WhatsApp video call. And believe me, a lot of business happened just because of that. So we Technocrat also will have to think how we can integrate the very, very small, nuanced, simple technologies, whether it's WhatsApp or the Facebooks, right? And the farmers would also be more digitally savvy going forward, because in the COVID, it has acted as a catalyst for them to understand the value of digitization. So challenging, at the same time, great time for people like you and me. That brings us to something which is very closer to what we are doing. Adoption of technology, or a lack of it, has been one of the biggest deterrent for India and the developing countries to achieve productivity and profitability of the farmers. How do you see digital technology impacting food and agriculture sector? And are there any specific technology green shoots which would be having more impact than others? Because we listen to a lot of jargons, right, throwing around by a lot of entrepreneurs, startups, and the events we attend. From blockchain will disrupt agriculture to suddenly somebody saying that machine learning is the solution for the world going forward, or the bots are going to grow the foods, you don't need the farmers. So we came out to to listen to all new things being talked about. Nothing wrong in that, but I've seen that the scalability of technologies has been, for past 10 years, the biggest challenge and the deterrent as well, right? Reaching to 10 million, 20 million, 30 million farmers has been a challenge for most of the technology. What areas do you think, the impact of technology would be maximum? At the same time, how do you see yourself, your organization doing things which are right in making digital technology reach more farmers?
Great, I think, thanks. So on the digital technology framework, what we have realized is, and our vision is to reach 20 million farmers in the next 3 years. So it's a large vision that we are carrying with ourselves. Now to really impact this 20 million farmers, I mean, we have to find means through which we can reach out to these farmers and help institutions in between, which is there, right? So we have partnered, our approach is B2B, right? And the major focus for getting farmers on board is mostly the government and the development sector, apart from the private sector that is working with us. So we basically help these sector players to interact and engage with the farmers in much more efficient manner. Now, let's talk about the challenges which these sectors are facing, or maybe from the government's perspective, right? So they want to have a digital record of what is the farmer, where the farmer is located, having a digital record of the land record, so that they can use this information as a stack, as a farm stack on which the rest of the transactions can interact on, right? So this is one of the perspective which the central government or the Indian government is working on. This eventually become the framework. It's like the Aadhaar framework on which the rest of the data or the rest of the ecosystem can come and interact. I think that's going to be one of the wonderful things coming out of that. This is one thing that is happening. there are startups and there are intervention that's happening on multiple fronts. So once you have done the digitization, you have the data. The next layer is in terms of building the insights and analytics on top of that data, right? And there are a lot of institutions which are doing that. Now, when you're trying to build analytics on top of this data, I think the best the solution which everyone is trying to approach is using machine learning on satellite data, right? Because this is something that they're seeing a perceived value of engaging in that particular thing. Because for a contract farming company which is working with 10,000 farmers, can there be a method for them to know that the performance of those 10,000 farmers, so that they can not send the field team and send it to only those 20% plots where the interaction would be required? So this saves 80% of the cost of a contract farming company, which will be obviously a value for them. So these are the intervention which will be there. But from the AI in agriculture, we see that the satellite also playing a role in terms of large area predictions and models around that. Now you talk in terms of delivery solutions on top. So once you have that baseline that is available, then you can run your other models of IoTs, right? So you can actually do predictive models about whether the irrigation would be, and that's where you talk about sustainable agriculture or SDGs of the UN, right? So when you're talking about reducing the water content of the entire water usage in terms of agriculture, then these all contexts would come in picture, that you can put smart IoT services on top of that. Or from the satellites using SAR data, you can actually predict whether the moisture content is less or it's suitable. And then basis that you do the irrigation. So these are the innovation that's happening, and which can basically complement different sectors which are interacting. One of the other things that's happening is drones. Drones are services which are actually reducing a lot of cost of labor in terms of the spray operations which is there. So we have institutions, they have successful stories in China, and there are a lot of startups which are engaging in this particular context. So reducing those manual intervention, either through drone services or through smart implements or through other products which is in the ground, to reduce the cost of labor or manual thing that's happening, so that the efficiencies can be brought in on top of that. So I think these are the pieces which will all be there. But the fundamental winning combination will be when you bring these pieces together. It's like a huge engine which is having different parts, but all of them has to connect together, so that the end output should be the best should be the best value or the best advice which can go to the farmer or to the ecosystem. So I see that the partnership approach in all of the service providers will be certainly a great value addition, and everyone will be focusing on some other core skill sets of technology, and they can go deeper into that. But eventually, once you interact together, it'll be a larger value for the ecosystem.
Yeah, very rightly said. In fact, this was also something which came out of, I was advising a few entities for the G20 meeting of Agriculture Minister. And something which came out very, very clearly is that people are looking at how they can take agriculture to a demand-driven agriculture ecosystem. That was one. Second thing is that when we talk about technologies, people are looking for the value rather than the technologies. So these two things which I could very easily see the world changing. Third thing is that because of the COVID, people are now more serious that actually this is a challenge which needs to be tackled. Unlike in the past, everything was left to the market forces, quote unquote, that they'll take care of it. But people have understood that actually when things goes wrong, the market forces just disappear, right? So end of the day, the social responsibility becomes very, very critical. So very well articulated, and Kunal, great insights. I believe that the agriculture ecosystem will be collaborating more and coming closer to solve the biggest issue we face today. This brings us to the last section of our discussion, which is the bullet points advisory to those startups. Right, you're having a huge body of work behind you. Right, you have seen the struggles, you have seen the challenges, you have come out of it successfully. You have pivoted many times. The startups would like to understand from you, what are the 4 or 5 things you would advise them in current scenario they should be doing, so that they are able to leverage the opportunities which agriculture sector would create in future.
I think there's no one answer. I think agriculture ecosystem being it's such a vast field in itself that there are so many opportunities, and as I said, billions of farmers which are working in this particular sector. I mean, there are so many opportunities of interaction. There are successful stories all across, and the one thing that you have to really be sure of is that what is the problem that you're solving. Unless you have a real problem, and the value of the problem should be good enough for you to sustain your business. right? So when we worked in the B2B segment, really figured out that this is the problem. The entire ecosystem had an inefficiency, and if you reduce that inefficiency, there's a cost that is getting saved by the ecosystem players, and they can have a portion of that particular cost. Now that becomes a business model of engagement, and then once you have one single business model, then you can basically scale it up in that particular direction. I've seen a lot of lot of startups. In the current crisis, I see that the agriculture ecosystem is least impacted. I mean, if you see the trends across all sectors, one thing and the positive thing that you're talking about is digital in agriculture is a positive trend, 5% more than the rest of the other segments. So it's having a positive trend in the COVID crisis, right? Which means that there is a lot of demand and there's a lot of need of digital in the field of agriculture. Now, as smart startups, we have to actually figure out that what is that demand need that is there, and what is that right solution fit that could be required. One of the examples is the marketplace right now. So there is a lot of need of the farmers getting connected, or farmers or FPOs or cooperatives directly getting connected to the ecosystem, which means either the traders or the buyers or the FMCG companies, so that the intermediation which is there, like now you have 10 to 20% going in the intermediation. If this goes off, then the farmers, there is a lot of value which can be which can be back given to the farmers. The other thing is that the intermediation is lost right now. So you have an opportunity to really directly come and interact. So building those marketplaces right now could be one of the solution. Government is talking a lot in terms of that. You also see that the advisory system is broken right now. The farmers which were relying on some other means, they are not able to get those advisories. So if your organization is focused on giving farmer, and there are hundreds of applications, farmer applications, which is there, I think is the right opportunity for you to run your advisories on top of that and help the farmers in this current crisis. The third layer could be the services layer. When you have taken care of the advisory, you have to help the farmers in the linkage part. Then there is different services which is there, and these services can be in terms of smart drip irrigation services. It can be in terms of financial linkage services. It can be in terms of input linkage services, something like a lot of startups are doing, or any of the smaller things which is in between. Some of them are doing smart handling of equipments, co-sharing of equipments, and you can learn all of these things that's there, right? So the positive thing is that the agriculture is seeing a positive trend. Digital is seeing a positive trend. And in this current crisis, if this is seeing a positive trend, that means the future is much brighter than the current time. So focus on whatever you are doing, find the right opportunities for yourself, go deeper into that, expand and grow as much as possible, because this is a time where people will be moving very fast in the digital side in agriculture. And the future, obviously, we will be very happy to partner with any of those startups which are in this particular space, because what we fundamentally believe is we cannot do everything on our own. Partnership will bring the next framework of revolution in agriculture to really solve the problem in entirety.
Awesome, Kunal. Very, very insightful advices. After being in the sector for some time, even I had a lot of learning from what you just said. And I'm very sure that the young audience and those who are looking as EdTech as their next big, I'll say, area of activity would learn a lot from it. Thanks a lot, Kunal. It was a pleasure talking to you as always. Wishing you all the best and keep rocking, keep doing what awesome things you're doing for the farmers across the globe. Look forward to see you and shake hands with you someday soon post-COVID. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Deepak. It was a pleasure. Thank you.